And then we've got to ask ourselves, what is our individual role? Because everything starts off with your individual decision. What difference do you want to make in your life? And how will the actions you take as an individual change the lives of others? And I think that's why many of you have come here to the African Leadership Academy. You've come here because you recognize that you want to connect with other people, with other cultures, with other languages, with other religions, and come to a realization that we are all part of one human race. And at the end of the day, we're all in one boat. And the future of the world, as we know it, depends on what we do together. That when I was 4 years old, they evicted us from our house, purely because I was the wrong color of skin. But I was 4 years old. I didn't know why. Why are we moving out of this house? I love this house. I love this area. Why do we have to leave? I was angry from a very young age. Angry that someone took my house away. And I lost my friends, and I lost the places where I used to play and grew up. And when I grew up to be a teenager, I found other young people that were angry. I went to a meeting of Steve Biko. He was a charismatic student leader of ours. What are the choices we have in life? We have a choice to either submit and accept our oppression, or to accept discrimination, or to accept our status that we are given in life, to allow someone to take away our human dignity. And he said another thing. He said, you can choose to be a bystander and accept what happens in your life. Or you could choose to become involved. You could pay the ultimate sacrifice and lose your life. But at least you will know that if you have to die fighting for a cause, you will die an honorable death. Now, those are choices that face us in our generation. They're not the choices that face your generation. But there are some fundamental things that face you today. That in this country of India, there's 60 million children that are stunted permanently. That's more than the population of South Africa. So there's huge poverty, but they have a huge IT superpower status. And that's what's happening today in the world. Across the world, even where we are making progress, like in South Africa, we're having a situation of rising inequality, differences between those that have something and those that have nothing. That's the challenge that we face today in Africa. And even if you look at my own country here in South Africa, you see a lot of debate, you see a lot of conflict taking place in our townships. Because, the future that we promised our people here has not come to bear. So what is wrong with a society where we have education and skills, but we still cannot get jobs? And how much more difficult is where you have no skills and you have unemployment? Part of what we need to do in our education system is to think about what is it that we need to do to develop a notion that we can create our own jobs. What are the values we walk out of this room or out of this institution? And that's why my belief that I should be here, and I spend a lot of my time talking to young people like you and having a conversation. And that's what I want to have, is I don't have a solution. And we made mistakes. And I can't come here and tell you, well, this is what you have to do. You will have to decide, individual by individual, what you want to do, how you want to connect, and what risks you want to take in your life, and how do you want to change the world we live in. You can become excited by that today. Excited by the challenges of changing the world. You would have to produce your leaders, your Steve Bikos, your Mandelas, your Archbishop Tutus. You will have to produce the NASAs of the future. And make sure you don't make the mistakes we made in an old Native American proverb. It says, we do not inherit the world from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children.
What about those children who get textbooks, who get privileges, yet they take it for granted and then they never do anything with the opportunities they're given? Those who get what others can't and take it for granted, they're the ones in the end who sort of bring it down. So how do you now tackle that issue on top of giving those who have, who don't have?
We're not all made the same. Some people need encouragement. Some people need strong discipline. Some people need nothing. Any society is made up of those that will be the natural leaders who do want to achieve. And there's always imperative that leaders like that become leaders not just of their own individual success, but try and take the society with them. How do we change people's minds that they know that investing in education is something that will give a better life? And we've got to create this thing of aspiration rather than aspiring to have an iPad. Aspire to learn from that textbook you have.
How do you feel the South African government has fared in delivering everything that it's promised? But it seems to me as if the solution the government has come up with is to lower the pass rate, the passing percentage for matric. So do you feel that as a country we should be focusing more on the quality of education and not having said to the rest of the world we have a 90% pass rate, yet half our kids aren't equipped for university?
So I think there are huge implications of us not focusing on quality, and I don't think that the solution is lowering standards. In fact, it's making our standards a lot more tougher. So there are many reasons for why education is failing in South Africa, and it has very little to do with the amount of money. It's got to do with many other issues, which are systemic and management issues and subject knowledge of teachers. And I think in some things the government has delivered very well. On some things it's been hopeless. And so it's fantastic that we can have an audience like this here, which would never been possible under apartheid.
Hello, I'm Yassine from Tunisia. So I'm interested in knowing, as former Minister of Communication, what do you think and how do you feel about the secrecy bill?
One of the things we fundamentally fought for was voice, to have our views expressed. And one of the principles of our struggle was, even if I disagree with what you are saying, I will defend to death your right to say it. The secrecy bill draws a veil of secrecy over our society and takes away our voices as citizens. Why would we want to go back to type of legislation that the apartheid government used to silence us? Because every country needs secrecy. Every country has secrets. But when it is not to protect the integrity of the state and the security of the state, but almost to protect those in power from their citizens, that's a difference. And the danger is that it's going to draw a veil of secrecy over the most cancerous growth in our society, which is corruption.
A lot of leaders promise a lot of things before they get into power. But they get into power, there's a process, there's something that happens that make them change behaviors. Like they're not the same person they were before they had power. So, for example, in your case, how did you manage it, or how would you advise us?
They say power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. I come out of a poor household. If we ate meat once a week, it was a lot, So lives have changed. So what happens is that when people go from where, people like myself have come, and then you get to a position where you become a minister and suddenly you've got bodyguards and you've got a car, and then you're treated like, special person, a VIP, and you get trapped by the system. And that happened to you. And that's the fight that you've got to have within yourselves. Because that's the ego conquering you. And when we allow a position, whether it's education, whether some people use religion, some people use the color of their skin, some people use the social status. When we start using that as a way to think of differentiating ourselves from others and thinking we are better than others, then the ego is conquering you as an individual. You know, some of the things we did is we said, for example, for a head of state, you shouldn't serve more than 2 terms. We pushed that into the Constitution. That because you are coming from, you have created and led the path as a liberator, suddenly your family has a right to create a dynasty after you. No one has some divine right to rule. You must earn that right. And to understand that this battle that we fight within ourselves is to whether we are here to educate ourselves, to just serve ourselves, or to serve the society. That's when you get to this question that one day in your life you will have. What is the meaning of my life? What have you done to change the lives of others?